Hey, it's me, Jen, your host of The Whole Shebang. If you're watching this episode right now on YouTube, you get to see this face right now because the rest of the episode does not have a video with it. I made a cardinal mistake early on. I thought I didn't need all of the video files and I needed storage space more. I was wrong. And they're forever gone. But I also want to include the audio. So this particular episode is audio only. I hope you enjoy. Keep watching. Go ahead and look at the rest of them and you'll see plenty of videos there. In the meantime, you know what they say, you know what I say, we say, have a banging day.
If you believe in your sport and in your endeavor that the milliseconds matter, which most of them do in the fractions of percentages, small things do matter. Don't get hung up on them, but acknowledge that the scientists believe that, the butterflies that flap their wings in South America eventually, create the weather patterns that we have here in North America. All of that together, of soaking things all, up around you and then laying those dominoes down and creating positive momentum. If you believe in those things, that eventually, and you do them in the right way and with the right people, and you could eventually change the world. You can change, a butterfly can change the weather pattern. You and I, an individual, can change the trajectory of the human race.
Welcome to The Whole Shebang. I'm Jen Briggs, your host. This podcast was born after seeing patterns of burnout, disconnection, and lost passions in all of life. And I believe it's because we functioned in part and not in whole. Society has championed a sort of overdeveloped left brain hustle culture energy, and I think we've shoved right brain principles like empathy, intuition, creativity, and playfulness into the shadows. And it just isn't working anymore. But here's what excites me. I'm seeing signs everywhere that we're entering a new era that is vibrant and magnetic. So I'm inviting you to come along with me as I interview authors, business owners, and of course, chat with my friends. You'll learn new practices for everyday life, cultivating creative approaches to run conscious businesses, develop more dynamic relationships, and most importantly, I believe that you'll become more and more wholly, authentically you. It's what we truly need, the complete package, the whole shebang. So buckle up, buttercups. We're diving in. Friends, today I am so excited for you to get the opportunity to meet Aaron Cooper. Former Nike designer of 25 years, now consulting worldwide. His work with global athletes from kids to fitness fanatics to Serena Williams, LeBron James, Scottie Pippen, Kevin Garnett. It's empathetic, it's intuitive, and uncommon, at least in my opinion, to say the least. Aaron is passionate about soaking up experiences with others, learning about their culture, and working with them to imagine what could be possible in creating newer and better products that connect emotionally and solve a problem. In short, Aaron believes that the root to brand success is found in one word: empathy. And if you know me at all, you know that I'm excited that today we dive into this conversation about what it looks like to build a business based on a foundation with the key to success being empathy, play, creativity, and innovation, and how all of those things combined not only move the business forward, but also actually push the human race forward for betterment and a positive impact. So we'll hear about his lessons from Nike, and we're also going to hear several of his life lessons, kind of his hypothesis and motto for how he chooses to live. And coincidentally or not, very serendipitously, that's part of how he got onto this podcast today, is that he pays attention to opportunity in front of him, and he is very giving in sharing his wisdom and knowledge. And so it is an honor that I had to sit down with him, and I am really thrilled to be able to share the wisdom that he shared with me. I hope that you enjoy this, and I trust that it's going to make a positive impact in your life and in your world. Aaron Cooper, thank you so much for joining me. Welcome to The Whole Shebang.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it. Have been looking forward to it.
You've been busy. You've been traveling the world, yes?
A little bit, yeah. Well, we met after when I was coming back from Asia. So I was in India for a week and China for 2 weeks, and then I just got back from Berlin.
Okay. I can't wait to hear. We'll share with the listeners kind of what you've been up to and what's bringing you around the world. Let's go back, if you don't mind, a little bit. I would love to hear. So you were at Nike for 25 years, yes?
Correct.
Okay. Can we go back prior to Nike? I would love to hear kind of how you got started, how you got into that, what your
How I
background
got,
is.
well, I'm a designer by education. Prior to that, I was a child of my father was a preacher. My mother was a social activist, actress. Very open family, very open home. Yeah, we were flying, rainbow flags before they were even a thing. A lot of a lot of diversity in my home. Um, my father was the first one, I think, in the Pacific Northwest to have a female preacher in his church
Mm.
back in the late 70s. I think it was early 80s. Didn't really go over so well with a lot of parishioners, but my dad didn't really care.
Wow.
So, yeah, I grew up in that type of home, and so very, uh, empathetic, I guess, both by genetics and by nature and nurture. And I think that with my creative, blood that came from my mom's side of the family primarily. I do have, creatives and designers and artists in the family, and so those things all coming together, I think, just made me want to get into, helping to solve problems, make lives better, and do it through design. And so I went to the Art Center College of Design and studied industrial design there, and then looked to get an internship, like a lot of college students do, and found Nike because I was a kind of an athlete growing up, and
Mm.
you know, Nike has designers, and I love sports, so I figured might as well look into it. Became the first design intern at Nike, and 25 years later,
Wait,
the rest is history.
you're
Yeah.
just going to glass right over that one.
Yeah.
Did you pitch that? Did you go in and say, hey, you need me to be here? Or how did you land that?
Um, yeah, actually, well, my school said don't bother. They don't do internships. And if you were to ask my mom, at least probably my dad, if you were to ask them how to get me to do something, the quickest would be to tell me what not to do. And so I don't like, I like being different. That's another thing is my mom always told me that I was a square peg in a round hole, and
Mm.
I was gonna cause me some troubles in my life. And sure enough, she was right. Um, I don't like doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. I like to kind of break molds and help people see through different lenses. And so when my school said don't bother, I looked into it and found somebody that was working at Nike that graduated from Art Center. So I got a hold of her, and she gave me the name of the person that headed up design. I just cold called him. And yeah, again, the rest is history. I mean, you just got to pursue and be relentless about it, and
Mm.
happen always, right away. And you just have to keep pursuing and have a map, and yeah, just go about it.
I love that. You've got children, yes?
I have 3 kids. Yeah, I have a 25-year-old son, a 22-year-old daughter, and a 18-year-old daughter.
Awesome. I kind of segued or jumped into that because I'm thinking about, obviously with all of our lives, there are lessons that we can extrapolate. And that is a huge one that I'm assuming throughout your career, were like, I'm just going for it. And you don't tell me I can't do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I was mentoring a student. Well, actually, he's a graduate looking for a job. I just was talking. I do a lot of mentoring, both in person, online, now over Instagram, which is crazy. But yeah, I do what I can to help others, and which I guess is what my dad and mom did. Like I said, it was kind of genetics. And was just sharing with him, and I share with everybody, like, you got to have a North Star. You got to have a Mount Everest. What's your mission? What are you looking to do? And that can change over time, which is fine. And once you have that in place, then you just got to build a map, start making a map. And if it's a place that nobody's ever been, you got to, make your own map. It doesn't exist. If it's something that, if in some cases, so if Nike is your Mount Everest to get to work to Nike one day, there's many maps out there, and then it's just a matter of finding those people that have already created those maps, and is it something that you can follow the same map, or is it you have to kind of use that as a starting point and then make your own? But yeah, it's just that constant pursuit of either writing, creating the map or following a map, and then having that North Star. I mean, I've always had North Stars. I think they've been brighter, in years past. Sometimes they get faint, but they're still there. I still have something in mind that I'm working towards.
I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to put a pin in that one for a second.
Okay.
On your North Star. Let's talk a little bit about Nike. You were there for a lot of years. I'd love to hear about some of the lessons that you took from that. I mean, there's probably so much. I don't even know what to ask you exactly, but what are some of the big lessons you took from your time there?
My biggest lesson, just off the top of my head, the first one that comes to mind is, it's actually in the book that Phil Knight wrote called Shoe Dog, which is, the day you start worrying about the business, meaning the financials, the day you start worrying about the business is the day you should start worrying about the business. And that's just simply the wrong focus. Focus on serving the population you're trying to help out. And the rest, the financials will come, the revenue will come. Because if you truly focus on them in an empathetic way and understand who they are and what they need, at an emotional level, they're gonna come with you, and they're gonna buy, quote unquote, buy whatever you're selling, whether that's a physical thing or a service or a sentiment, whatever it is, whatever you're selling, and whatever they're gonna follow you, and that's what they did for 30, 40, well, I don't know, 40 plus years, 45 years. And I think over the last few years, Nike's struggling a bit because I think they're serving the wrong master. They're serving the wrong population. They're serving Wall Street. They're serving the share price. And so I think that's just a different, so I've always believed in, empathy is the, the root of understanding. I mean, the day that we're all empathetic to each other is the day we have a world peace. So,
how have you cultivated that? Well, so I'm thinking about you and Nike, and I'm kind of thinking about who you're serving, and you've worked with some iconic, some legends, creating iconic sneakers. Were you serving the athletes? Were you serving the consumer that was buying the sneakers? Like, who were you serving, and who were you seeking to be empathetic to?
Always depended on who. So if it was Serena Williams, I was being, trying to be empathetic with her, but I believe she's not one in a million. She's one of a million. There's a million people. There's a million Serena Williamses out there. There's tens of millions. She happens to be the one that became the greatest of all time, and certainly in the sport of tennis, but maybe one of the greatest athletes of all time. That's her gift. But in terms of who she is as a person, a human being, there's millions of people like her, and that's who she wants. That's, she wanted to inspire millions of people. So working with her to be empathetic about the athlete that she's trying to be and the goals that she's trying to reach. I think there's this, similar people out there trying to do the same thing. And so she and I worked together to create something that wasn't just specifically built for her. It was something that was built for her that, millions of other people would appreciate and also want. So, so that's, but I wouldn't have told, high school classes, I've told, like, if if you and I were to work on if you run and you have, you're like, oh, running shoes, I haven't found my perfect running shoe. Well, you and I could sit down and create a running shoe together that, if you didn't have some, um, specific running, specific issue that we're trying to solve, I would guess that
I
you
have
probably
lots of issues. Can you solve my problems?
we're just talking about running right now and footwear.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
But,
Never mind.
but yeah, so we would work together to do that. And my guess is that there's probably a lot of people like you. And but that's also, at Nike, that was also our job to make sure that we weren't just serving, a very small population, that there was actually, a business to be created there.
I feel like that's such a powerful sentiment, that she is not one in a million, she's one of a million. When you said that, just like your perspective on humanity, that's maybe a big way of saying it, is so powerful.
So good example, also back to the analogy of the Mount Everest and the map. And so her Mount Everest was, she had many of them. She had many peaks, right? She was, and she was climbing climbing to the next peak for every slam that she was entering. And that was her Mount Everest of the time. And so, but she didn't, so that was her North Star, her Mount Everest, that analogy. And then she had a pretty good map, right? She built it over time, and she knew what she was doing, and she stuck to it. But trust me, there were times where she was laying in bed, and didn't want to get out. She loves her bed and wanted to sleep in, just like a lot of us do. But her North Star is so bright that nothing's going to stop her. She knows she knew what she wanted. She wanted to win. And she knew if she didn't get out of bed and go to the gym or go to the court and train, she was never going to get to the top of her mountain. She was never going to, reach her North Star. So that's where, a lot of these athletes, again, they're just human beings. And I think I've heard from actually quite a few of them that they appreciate that about me, is that I treated them as such, that, we acted as human beings. I didn't put them on a pedestal. We just worked together to create something that they were in need of, something that I felt that they could use to help them achieve what they were looking for. And that was my job, was to at least meet their expectations. And then I think most times we at Nike would exceed their expectations. And if you meet or exceed their expectations, then just imagine, the majority of that population that you're trying to serve, you're going to serve them well. And that's my point back to, if you stay focused on that population that you're trying to serve, in this case with Nike, focus on the athlete and being empathetic to them and serving them, the rest will come. I mean, it's inevitable. But if you focus on Wall Street and trying to serve the business, you're only going to know what is being sold today. And eventually that'll dry up. And you'll put too many of you'll put too much value in that and put out too much product. You'll, whatever, like there's a number of pitfalls that you can fall into if you're listening to the wrong voices.
Yeah. So if I'm little Jen enters Nike or wherever you're working, and I'm focused on selling as many widgets as I can, and I'm maybe don't have I'm not attuned to this idea of empathy. How would you coach someone in a business setting? Like, how specifically does someone cultivate empathy? What does that look like? What questions are you asking in those moments, or how would you teach someone to tune into that?
It's a good question. I mean, I think I'm an experiential learner myself, so my best way and my favorite way is to try to eat, sleep, breathe, and live in the shoes. I guess the pun is intended for Nike, but live in the shoes of the people you're trying to serve. Walk a mile in their shoes. So like my travels, like when I went to India, working with this company in India, I told them I want to live like them. I want to be immersed into their culture as much as I can in 1 week. And so that was the objective. and I think I did a pretty good job in just a short amount of time. And I certainly need to do a lot more, but that's the goal, is to reach an empathetic level with that population, so that if, whatever I'm designing for them, hits them emotionally. It just doesn't solve a problem. It connects with them on an emotional level. And I don't think you can do that if you don't have that, if you really don't reach that empathy. And so, just educating yourself as much as possible about the population you're trying to serve. If you're a founder of a company, typically you're of, a lot of times those founders are of that population. They see a need because they're living among it. And so, but then sometimes the business either evolves outside of that, or grows beyond their capabilities, and that's when they need to bring somebody else in. But they got to make sure that the person that they're bringing in also has that same empathy for the business that they're trying to create and the population they're trying to serve. And in this case, like, I think, as your company grows, you certainly, the small group that you start off with, typically that's, again, from that population. You're all from the kind of the same birds of a feather flock together, right? But as you grow and bring in more people, you may bring in an expert of a particular part of your business, but they might not be of that population. Not to say that they have to be, but they have to have at least a big enough curiosity and a passion for that population to be on a constant pursuit to gain that empathy. If they don't, for example, if you're working out at Nike, you don't care about sports, I don't know how well you're going to do at serving that population. You may do great in a corporate setting. Right. And if that said company, in this case Nike, is rewarding you for the business you're doing, but you're not reaching empathy, then I question whether or not Nike or that said company is going to be successful year in and year out. If that makes sense. Like your employees need to have that empathy. They need to have that understanding of who they're trying to serve. And again, they don't have to be that person. But they have to be curious enough to and a strong enough passion to find the empathy, to gain that empathy.
It seems like such a simple and basic idea to approach business with empathy. And I don't know how common it is. I don't know what you've seen, but I think with some people it is, but my experience has been that it's so easy to get just like spinning in your mind with the objective. And so it's like, okay, here's the objective. I'm going to chase it. But to lose sight of like putting yourself, like you said, back in that person's shoes. And when we do, of course, we're going to, I would think, be a lot more successful because we're really solving their problems and connecting with them in a way that feels meaningful. Who doesn't want that?
It's the objective. Is your objective about transactions, about financial transactions, or is your objective about building a relationship? Is your objective about building a successful financial company based on revenue, or is your objective about building a generational brand? Like, that's, if you listen to like old interviews, or even like business, like executives of successful companies, they typically will talk about, if it's a product company, they'll talk about the importance of the product and that it connects at an emotional level. And they'll talk about the importance of their customers or their members or their subscribers or whomever that population is, and how important that relationship is. So it's the product, and it's the relationship you have with the people you're trying to serve, period. End of story. You don't need, you need to market to get the word out. And that marketing, if you have a strong enough relationship with your population, then that marketing will speak emotionally to those people you're trying to reach. But yeah, at the very end of the day, it's down to that simplicity of the product and of the people.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love
so
that.
if it's the product and the people and the empathy is at the foundation, like that's your formula.
It's a pretty special secret sauce formula, I feel like.
I mean, but to your point about making that happen, and you can't do that. Like I can't, if I'm creating a product for India, I can't do that sitting in my desk in Portland, Oregon. I can learn
Mm.
a lot over the internet. The internet's a great tool. It's amazing. I can learn a lot now doing Zooms with people that live in India. Amazing. Like, but at the end of the day, you got to go live. You got to eat, sleep, breathe, and walk in the shoes of that population. I mean, there, name any successful long-term standing brand, and that's how they were built, and that's how they continue to grow.
Yeah. That's so great. Yeah, getting in there with the people, connecting in a real way. It seems to me, it feels like it's getting out of this idea of like, okay, I'm on the internet, I'm doing research, I'm very in my head, I'm conceptualizing what they need, but that's very different than getting in on the ground level with them. And like you
Absolutely.
said, building a relationship.
Yeah.
For the people that don't know, I feel like it might be, I don't know. I don't want to put you on the pedestal, but I do want to say how
Where's this going?
you're about to find it. I just think it's how we met, I think is fun. We were in the airport. I had a long layover. You had a long layover. I'm sure you were very tired getting back from India, and we got to chatting. I was with a friend of mine. She had a couple glasses of wine, and oh my gosh, she's got a podcast. And one of the things that you said, you were speaking to this idea of empathy in business, and then also the importance of play in business, which is what keyed me into this would be really great to have this conversation with you. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge that this is time out of a busy schedule for you, and I'm really grateful for you being willing to share your wisdom and experience. So that's
Sure.
the pedestal-y part that I appreciate. Secondly, I wanted to circle back to this, what you meant by that, the importance of play. That's kind of stuck with me, and I don't think I had clarity on what you meant by that.
Well, for me, play is at the base of, it's the beginning. It's the foundation of creativity.
Mm.
Creativity is at the foundation of innovation, and innovation is what pushes and the human race forward. And almost kind of like in a full circle, that idea of empathy is at that foundation. Like you don't if you were asked people, like when you're actually like the most uninhibited form of play with others, there is a level of empathy that you have with each other, in my belief.
Mm.
So if you look at if you get a bunch of kids together from all over the world, put them in, if you were to fly a bunch of kids from all over the world and put them into a playground, and let's say they're 6 years old, probably 6, because I think any older things start happening. But 4 to 6 years old, like they only care about one thing. Like, what game are we going to play? Like, if I were to ask you, like, hey, let's go, play basketball or something, and you're like, well, I don't like basketball. I like to play with Barbies. Like, okay, that's cool. Let's go play with Barbies. Like, I don't think there's, at a certain age, up to a certain age, there isn't, there's some people, kids lean one way or the other often, but play is play. Like that uninhibited play is just fun. The kids make up games, and it's kind of the difference between, and where I think the problem is, an issue with sports in America right now, is that it's becoming more and more a pay to play model of sports. And so there aren't that many kids anymore that play the games of sport. They compete in the sports, but in terms of just playing the game of basketball or soccer in an uninhibited way, making up their own rules as they go in the driveway or out on the street or in the park, There's not a whole lot of that left anymore,
Hmm.
unfortunately, and I think it's a big issue.
Hmm.
And so, to me, that's again and also in our school system, there's not a whole lot of just uninhibited play that happens on the playground or in the schools. I think that's also an issue, and the safety of our cities and the playgrounds. And a lot of times if you go to a playground and if there's kids there, they're being accompanied by their parent pretty closely. Well, that means that they're only going there when their parents can take them, and all of our lives seem to get more and more busy, and you know, single single parents, two working parents, the time is constrained, and so. But when I grew up, you'd go to the park. It was safe to go to the school park, your local park, by yourself with your friends and go play, and so there's a lot more of that happening. So.
Hmm.
So that's to me why play is such an important part of our life, because it is the beginning of creativity. Creativity is innovation, and innovation leads to pushing this
Hmm.
human race forward. And
That's a really
so
helpful framework. I'm curious, I don't know how to ask the question, but do you practice play in your everyday life as a grown
oh,
adult? Are there things that you're like, hey, I'm feeling a little rigid. I need to go play?
yeah, I mean, thank you for calling me out on that. I mean, there's a lot of things that I often find myself preaching and then struggling to practice.
Mm.
And so, my form of play is getting to the gym, like, and going for a run. Um, I do have a hard time sitting still. I have a hard time like staying in the moment, because most of my life is, at least my profession is out in the future. And so I do struggle with that, but I'm trying to be more empathetic to myself, to
Mm.
be, acknowledge that that's a problem I have, and that I at least acknowledge it. Like, what's the first step, is that you admit it. And so I know that that's a problem, that, but that idea of like, being in the moment,
Mm.
is, yeah, something I work at. And I know it.
You
I'm
are not alone in that. I mean,
what's that?
like,
No, for sure.
yeah, you're not alone in that. And that's part of why I asked, because it's part of what I've seen. I think we're all better off when we have that in our lives for all of the reasons you just said. And I'm feeling that in the workplace, that if we really want to unlock innovation, we have to build the muscle of imagination. And where does that come from? I mean, it's everything you just said. And
Right.
so I've been working on, and it is an effort. It takes effort to figure out, like, well, how do I play as an adult? Like, what do I do? Playing piano, playing an instrument, doing some different creative things. That's a muscle that if I exercise it here, I'm assuming it's going to apply over here. But I don't know. I just don't think we put a lot of focus on it. And I'm setting goals. I'll set fitness goals, but am I setting like a play goal? No, I don't have it on my list this year, but I maybe should add it in.
That's super interesting. I love that, because so one of the things I do for a workout is I have three parks in my neighborhood. They're all spaced out. I do a circuit. So I start at my house, I run to one park, I do a circuit, run to another park, do a circuit, run to another park, do a circuit, and come home. If I can get it done in under an hour, then I feel really good. And it's about two and three quarters miles or loop. And there are times where they're jungle gyms, and I'm doing pull-ups and doing my thing, and a body weight stuff. And sometimes there's kids that are playing there, and their parents. During COVID, it was super interesting because I was still doing it, and parents were getting out with their kids, and I'm working out next to their kids, and they're sitting on the park bench on their phone. And I had a couple times where they blew up at me saying, "Hey, you know, you shouldn't be here. This is for kids," and blah blah blah. And I'm like, says who? Like, what? I'm
Wow.
not like, I'm just a bigger kid. Like, I didn't like, that's part of the problem. Like, that's part of my. And funny enough, on the flip side, that some of the kids would be like, "Hey, what do you like? That's cool. What are you doing?" And I'm like, I'm just playing like you are. And then they would try to emulate me to try and do pull-ups, and we'd kind of work out together. And I would ask their parents, the friendlier ones, as we would get engaged in a conversation of like, at what point in our life does play turn into a workout?
Yeah.
Because if you just go to a jungle gym, if I go to a jungle gym, do pull-ups and monkey bars and do all that stuff, like and just emulate a kid,
It's a big
playing or am I
workout.
working out?
Yeah.
Right? And there
Yeah.
are like parkour. There's parkour gyms, right? That are they playing in there? If you were to ask a parkour athlete in the gym, are you playing or training or working out? What are you doing? That'd be an interesting
That would
question.
be interesting.
The idea of play. That's why I said like a part of my play is going for a run.
Yeah.
Somebody else might be like, well, that sounds miserable. That's not play to me. That's cool. Like I don't, do your, whatever your play. And I'm also fortunate in that, creation is play to me. So I, kind of working it sometimes is play for me. So
I was saying that to a colleague recently. We were working on building some training and facilitation things out, and I said, "This is so fun. I feel like I'm in a sandbox, and these are like I'm playing with ideas, or building a business. To me, feels like play." And I think a part of the reason it feels like that is because I'm focusing more on that in my life, so that's starting to be a little bit of more of a filter of how I see things, which is really fun.
yeah, well, that's again like why in this company in India that I'm working with, that's what we're trying to bring back is again, at what point in our life do we all of a sudden become an adult and say, oh, that's for kids. Like stop playing
Yeah.
or stop messing around, stop playing around, get serious. Well, why? What's the beginning of
Yeah.
the end, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we should be enjoying, what we do and balancing, if look, and a lot of people aren't as lucky as at least I know I am to have a job and that I feel like it's not necessarily work. I mean, sometimes it feels like work, but majority of the time I'm like, I don't know, like work sounds
Mm.
hard. I think my job when it's, when I'm having the most enjoyment is easy. It's fun.
Mhm.
And so yeah, I that idea of bringing play into my life and, it's a little bit more gray, I think, but for others, making sure you bring in some level of play, some level of enjoyment that balances out the harder work that you have to do. Like it's
Yeah.
the work hard, play hard. And you asked about my kids. I was sharing with this person I was talking to the other day. I think for my kids, they grew up in this neighborhood of play with high performing parents and mentors of friends of mine and parents of their friends, and I think now they're having a little bit of a struggle because a lot of their peers aren't from that kind of that world, right? Like
Mm.
they expect things. They're of that generation, right? Um,
Right.
so they're having a hard time kind of fitting in with new peers that aren't part of their peers that they grew up with, because it's just a different lifestyle that they grew up with.
Sounds like they'll have to follow in your footsteps and break some molds. Yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Okay. I snooped you on Instagram because I had to like learn a little bit more about you. And I came across a post where you were talking about sponges, dominoes, and butterflies. So would you speak a little bit to that and what that means?
Sure. Well, you can also share. So my Instagram, I started, I don't know, 8 months ago now, 6 months ago. And it's just aaron.ac.cooper or at aaron.ac.cooper. And I just started it just to share stories and, build an awareness, get a voice out there so I can get people to connect with people that I might be able to help, and it's been quite amazing. And I've already made a lot more friends around the world that connecting with them and helping them and doing what I can. And part of that is the sponges, dominoes, and butterflies is something that it's like my hypothesis on life. Like I go around with hypotheses for work, for projects. I have a big one for life. And if I got hit by the proverbial bus today, and you could ask my kids, what three things did your dad believe in? They would tell you sponges, butterflies, and dominoes, and some of their friends have heard that too. And so that's kind of my hypothesis. Like if you were to boil everything down, that's kind of what I believe this life is all about. So sponging, soaking up everything around you with all of the senses that you were given, and I've been blessed with all five. And I tell people, actually, I use this when people ask me, "Hey, what was India like?" I'm like, "Well, your five senses are redlining all the time."
Wow.
And it for me, in the life I live, I mean, it's exhausting. Like it's pretty manic. All those, having all of them, buzzing at that level.
Mm.
But while I was there, like my job was to soak all that up and to find that empathy, right? So soaking all that up, and just in life in general is use all five of your senses, soak up everything around you, and then equally important, you got to go then squeeze it out for other people to learn from, so that you can then absorb new things. So if you just and that's why if anybody asks me, "Oh, what was India like?" or I'll offer like, "Oh, I just got back from India. It was the cool." Like I've bumped into strangers. Actually, somebody at the airport. Actually, it was the currency exchange woman at the airport. I just asked her. I asked her a separate question, and she's like, "Oh, well, where did you just come in from?" And I said, "Oh, I was in India and China." And we just started talking, and I shared everything I learned about India. And she was like, "Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much." And so the more you can squeeze out and share with other people so that they can also learn and soak up from you, and then you can also then absorb more. So that's all about sponges. Then the dominoes is a part of that where, I have no idea what that conversation with that woman at the currency exchange will do for her, or where she'll take that. But she may then take that and do something else with it. She may be standing up another domino, and those dominoes may eventually evolve and turn into something and knock something over and create something that we never thought imaginable. And we may not even, they may be, off on a trail that I'll never know of in the future. But I think it's important to always create positive momentum and like just constantly trying to be a positive force in this world and try to stand up dominoes, whatever those are. And then the butterflies is just that I do believe I try not to get hung up on the little things, but I do believe the little things matter. I'm pretty famous for saying that at Nike that millimeters matter. And I think that helped athletes believe, like if you believe in your sport and in your endeavor that the milliseconds matter, which most of them do in the fractions of percentages, then you should care about the millimeters of the footwear and apparel that you have on your body that you're trying to perform in. So to me, the millimeters matter. Small things do matter. Don't get hung up on them, but acknowledge that the scientists believe that the butterflies that flap their wings in South America eventually create the weather patterns that we have here in North America, and so all of that together. Of soaking things all up around you and then laying those dominoes down and creating positive momentum. Don't tell people that it was a dumb idea, because they may keep them from setting up their own domino. And then that if you believe in those things, that eventually and you do them in the right way and with the right people, and you could eventually change the world. You can change, a butterfly can change the weather pattern. You and I, an individual, can change, the trajectory of the human race. So, I mean, it's all science. It's all fact. It's all
love that you're saying that, because when I say things like that, because they're big ideas, but they're small ideas. To me, everything you're saying to me feels like a version of, a piece of what I'm taking from it is how interconnected everything is, and to not downplay all of the things that we do from day to day, whether it's meeting you at the airport or the conversation I have with somebody at the grocery store. Who knows what the effect of.
Perfect example. So, soaking up. So I'm at the airport. I hadn't slept for probably 48 hours, wondering how I was going to get home because my flight was delayed. I saw a chair next to you guys. I didn't feel, I felt like, I don't know, something just kind of called to me about like just sitting in that space. So I didn't push that aside. I kind of, I soaked that moment. I soaked that up and was aware of what was going on. So I sat down. Then we started creating more, momentum together. Those dominoes. You asked me to do this. I said yes. And who knows? Someone in the future may listen to this and hear something that we talked about, and that may change what they're doing in a positive way that we will never know the result of. Yep. But I believe that, and I believe it because it's happened to me too. Like, I'm blessed to have people come back to me. And now it's happening over Instagram, amazingly, just from the footwear that I've designed, that Nike created, that has gotten out there and has literally changed people's lives. A shoe, because of what it meant to them and how it entered their life. And I mean, I can tell stories for days, but those are the things I believe in. And
maybe a next tattoo idea for you.
Next tattoo I am working on.
Do you want to get a sponge tattoo?
No, but I will. Because another thing that my consultancy that I started and I left Nike is called Moonshot Molecules, and so it's kind of the idea of like the connecting a moonshot with a big idea, changing the world type of idea, like the butterfly effect of what can happen. And then molecular structure of the behavioral things that are happening today, like soaking up the little things, and then it's the dominoes between those behaviors to the moonshot, and it's having the ability to have one eye in a telescope and one eye in a microscope, and to be able to connect those two things together and see them very clearly. That's always been my objective is. And what I create and with the clients that I have and the work that I do. So that the moonshot and the molecules and the sponges, dominoes, and butterflies kind of fit in between that. And the person I am is this idea of kind of the square peg and round hole. And so it all kind of fits. It all fits together, at least in my own mind.
Is the moonshot molecule, is that your new Mount Everest, your new North Star, or what's your Mount Everest right now?
Great question. My Mount Everest right now is to get to a place in life and financially where I'm able to work on the projects that I believe have the most value, and afford me the ability to travel the world and continue to build empathy with the people on the planet, and with my 3 kids, have them living in different places wherever they want to be, and be able to spend time with them at any given moment, and just enjoy the life that I'm living and the planet that I'm living on, in a constant, continual pursuit to help make both better, the people on the planet.
Pretty noble.
It's fun. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to do what I can. I do what I can
they're
do.
both the same thing.
And I just I don't. If I just want to be happy in that pursuit and believe that it's making a difference, and if at the end of the day if it can be built up into something that's at some level of a legacy to leave behind, great. I think the importance is that you do it. Like I don't. That's my hope is that I'm making this world a better place. I don't like. I just don't. I've read books. I've heard stories. I've heard from people. Um, you know, when people have a near death experience and they wake up and they realize that life is bigger than themselves. Everybody, there's a human truth. I believe that everybody wants to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Unfortunately, some people don't realize that until they're on their deathbed.
Yeah.
Some people are fortunate enough to have that happen to them, and then have a life to live thereafter. But and I think it's a little bit of a blessing and a curse to be as young as I am, to have had parents that instilled that in me, and to have a life that has further strengthened that in me, because that's now the pursuit that I'm on. But it's you say it's noble, but it's I'm trying, and it is sometimes you can let it get a little bit too big, I think.
Sure.
And both negatively for you and then also negatively for others. Sometimes I can get on pedestals, I can get on soapboxes, I can get a little overwhelming for people. That's something else I've tried to acknowledge about myself and be careful of. But that's also where I enjoy it. That's why I'm on this. Like I enjoy these types of. I'm the type of person at the party that if I can find the one person that we can sit in the corner and have deep conversation about something, like that's kind of what I enjoy. That is a party for me. Like I like to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the part of it when you're talking about like, I want to make an impact, when that's coupled with the way that you're doing it is something you love. It's fun. You enjoy it. It's not just like, well, I'm just going to try to make the most positive impact, even if I hate what I'm doing. And that's the dream to me, is to live a life that's what I'm working on doing right now. Like with this podcast, it's like, man, this doesn't feel like work at all. I love this. And I hope that it is a catalyst, that it propels people, that it helps change people, but I'm not doing it because I feel like I should, I'm doing it because I want to. And that's, yeah, I think that's similar to what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. We're close to end of time. I have one more question for you.
Okay.
I think I have one more question for you. If your 20-year-old self was standing here right now, what would you say to him, knowing what you know now?
Enjoy the ride. Like I've been 20 years. I'm 53 now, so 33 years. Like just enjoy the next 33 years because they're going to be amazing. Like I've had struggles for sure. But I think that that continues to be my, my 53-year-old self tells me all the time, to enjoy the moment, be in the moment. And so if I could have learned that back when I was 20, so I'd be better at it today, I think that would be what I want, because I'm still not very good at
it. Yeah, it's a practice.
In fact, my logo, what I sign, because my AC, I would do like an @ sign, and I've just evolved it so that the A is a square and the C is obviously a circle. But it's always been this kind of meaningful to me because it helps me remember, like, be in the moment, be where you are at in this moment. And so this square peg and round hole, be happy with who you are. Don't try to change, like that's also like what I want to share for others too, is like, I think we're all kind of square pegs and round holes. Some people have molded themselves to fit into where they want to be, which is great. For them, I'm trying to constantly, like I said, my mom said I'd have an issue, because I am a square peg, but I'm trying to become more comfortable with that, and happy about it, because I still fit in the world that I live in. Square pegs do fit in round holes. They just kind of fit awkwardly. And so trying to be comfortable with that. And I think helping other people, be the same. Like, I square pegs and octagon pegs and star-shaped pegs. I mean, all fit around holes. Like, there's nothing wrong.
I feel like that's how the butterfly effect works. It's so cliche to say, like, just be as authentically you as you can be. And I think that's the design. I believe that if we all could tune into that as much as humanly possible, everything would flourish because we need you the way you're designed to be.
This is where I have the biggest problem with where our society in the US is right now. And we can finish the podcast on this, because I will say a very Merry Christmas to you and Happy Holidays. And if you say, well, I don't celebrate Christmas, I'm Jewish, I celebrate Hanukkah, then I will say, that's amazing and awesome. Have an amazing Hanukkah. Next time we talk, I'd love to learn more about, I don't know that much about, I know some, but I'd love to hear more from you. Like, whatever happened to that relationship and that ability to have a conversation? Because today, in most, at least corporate environments, they can't, you will get pulled into HR if you say Merry Christmas, because you could have offended somebody in the room, instead of that person saying, hey, I don't celebrate Christmas. Oh, that's cool. What do you celebrate? And then again, back to the full circle of where this conversation started from, building that empathy and all that, like, that's cool. Let's play some, let's tell me more about your celebrations and how you celebrate. And I'll tell you more about mine, and you share some with me, I'll share some with you. And that sounds like a lot of fun to me. And diversity, by the way, is what also drives innovation. So, but we're never going to be diverse. We're never going to be empathetic. We're never going to get to where we want to go as a human race, if we don't have these conversations. So that's that's where I want to get to, and that's why
That's huge. That's huge. Thank you for being an example of that and creating space for these conversations, not just here today, but in the work that you're doing and in the people you bump into. It sounds like everywhere you go. I think it's a really powerful example of something that we can all pretty easily, I think, pull into our own daily practices. So,
well, yeah, I would say it's easy to acknowledge, not easy to practice every day. But again, like,
sure.
at least acknowledging and understanding that we can all be better, and get on a pursuit for betterment.
Yeah,
that's all. Like, just as long as we all stay on that pursuit. It's the same thing like with working out. Like, if you want to get more fit, if you want to lose weight, if you want to gain more knowledge, you got to read the books. You got to soak up the information. You got to do the work in the gym. But life gets in the way, so you might not get to the gym today, and that's okay. Get to the gym tomorrow, or instead of getting to the gym today, go for a walk with your dog, or go for a walk with your family, or do something to stay on that pursuit. The problem is when we fall off the tracks and just come up with excuses of, or we get into ruts, and we don't have the ability, we don't have people around us to help get us back onto that path, that pursuit that we're on. So that's another, sorry, keep going. That's another one.
Hey, I welcome everything you would like to share.
The idea of birds of a feather flock together, I think it's really important. And I've heard this, and I've seen this. Surround yourself with the people you want to be like. So, and that, it's really difficult. I can't even imagine some of the lives that I've encountered and the people that they feel stuck with. Is if you're having trouble with the person you are and the person you want to be, I mean, look around you. Are you surrounded by the people that you want to emulate? If you're not, you gotta. But I'm saying like that, I can't even imagine. I mean, there's people that are in some pretty awful situations that really difficult to get out of. But that's a big, birds of a feather flock together. So it's important.
It's not easy, but I personally think that's one of the things that can be one of the biggest factors in cultivating the life you want to live, and as soon as you start to take aligned action with those relationships lining up, whether it's work or personal, things can shift pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's so not easy. It's not easy.
No. I mean, and hey, I hope that, we can all work together to, like I said, for betterment so that, if you're in a situation with people that aren't great, you can at least first try to help make them better.
Yeah.
Before leaving that situation. But,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anything else? Is there
so much to
anything
talk
else you
about.
want to say, Aaron?
Get me going. So yeah, I got to be careful. I'll step down.
I was just going to say, are you on the pulpit? Are you on a pulpit right now? No,
Yeah,
it
no,
doesn't
see,
feel like it to me. I reference that back because of your father. My dad was actually a preacher too, and I worked in a church and church music for 10 years. So,
wow.
yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you. Thank you again for your time. It really feels serendipitous and special to have had this conversation today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was great meeting you at the airport, and yeah, let's stay in touch. You know where you can find me.
Sounds good. We'll share all of your contact information in the show notes as well, and let people know how they can get a hold of you too. So thank you, Aaron.
All right, Jen. Thank you.